Hello everyone and welcome back to today's video, the second episode of Japanese expansion from 1894 to 1905. We hope you enjoy.
Japanese nationalism and militarism up until 1910. After the Meiji Restoration in 1868, Japanese nationalism surged as the country sought to modernize and strengthen itself against Western imperial powers. The new government, determined to prevent Japan from suffering the same fate as China and other colonized nations, actively promoted Kokutai, which emphasized the emperor as a divine and unifying figure. This ideology framed Japan's modernization efforts as a national duty, reinforcing loyalty to the state and fostering a sense of collective identity. Western institutions, technologies, and military strategies were rapidly adopted, but always with the intent of preserving Japan's unique cultural heritage and sovereignty. The introduction of universal conscription in 1873 transformed Japan's military into a modern fighting force and instilled nationalist fever among the population. Simultaneously, the Meiji government overhauled the education system, implementing a state-controlled curricula that emphasized patriotism and reverence for the emperor. These efforts created a highly disciplined and ideologically unified society that viewed Japan's modernization as both a necessity and a moral imperative. By the late 19th century, nationalism became intertwined with expansionist ambitions. The successful campaigns in the First Sino-Japanese War from 1894 to 1895, where Japan decisively defeated China and gained control of Taiwan and influence over Korea, further fueled national pride. This victory proved that Japan was not only capable of defending itself, but could also challenge established regional powers. The subsequent triple intervention in 1895, in which Russia, Germany, and France pressured Japan into returning some of its territorial gains, deepened national resentments and reinforced the belief that Japan needed to continue expanding its military strength to protect their own ambitions. By the early 20th century, nationalism had become deeply embedded in both government policy and public consciousness. With tensions rising against Russia over influence of Manchuria and Korea, nationalists pushed for further military action to solidify Japan's status as a major power. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 would ultimately cement Japan's place on a world stage, but even before the war began, the rising tide of nationalism had already set the course for Japan's imperial ambitions for decades to come.
The First Sino-Japanese War, which was from 1894 to 1895, was a conflict between the Qing dynasty of China and the Empire of Japan, primarily over control and influence in Korea. Korea had long been a vassal state of China, but Japan, following the Meiji Restoration, sought to expand its influence in the region. Tensions escalated in 1894 when the Donggak Rebellion in Korea led both China and Japan to send troops, ultimately sparking war. Japan, having rapidly modernized its military and economy, was far better prepared than China, whose Qing government struggled with internal problems and ineffective reforms. The war ended in 1895 with a decisive Japanese victory, forcing China to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki. Under this treaty, China recognized Korea's independence, effectively removing it from Chinese influence. Additionally, Japan gained control of Taiwan, the Pescadores Islands, and the Liaodong Peninsula, though it was later forced to return the latter due to Russian and European intervention. China also had to pay a large indemnity and grant Japan new trading privileges. This war had profound consequences for both nations. It marked the rise of Japan as a dominant power in East Asia, demonstrating its military strength and ability to challenge traditional regional powers. For China, the defeat exposed the Qing dynasty's weaknesses, leading to internal unrest and demands for reform. Furthermore, China's vulnerability encouraged increased intervention from Western powers, including Russia, Germany, and France, who sought to expand their own influence in China. The First Sino-Japanese War was a turning point in East Asian history, setting the stage for future conflicts and reshaping power dynamics in the region.
The Russo-Japanese War, from 1904 until 1905, was driven by competing ambitions between Japan and Russia in East Asia. One of the primary causes was territorial rivalry as both nations sought control over Manchuria and Korea, recognizing their strategic and economic importance. This competition for influence created significant tension between the two powers. Another major factor was Russian expansionism. Russia's aggressive push into East Asia directly threatened Japan's growing interest in the region, making conflict increasingly likely. Japan viewed Russia's actions as an encroachment on its sphere of influence and felt compelled to respond. Despite efforts to resolve their differences diplomatically, negotiations over diving spheres of influence ultimately failed. The breakdown of diplomacy left both nations at an impasse, with war becoming inevitable. Underlying these tensions was the desire for prestige. Japan sought to assert itself as a rising global power, demonstrating its military strength and political influence. Meanwhile, Russia aimed to reinforce its dominance in Asia, leading both countries to view war as means to enhance their international standing. The war's outcome had far-reaching consequences. Japan achieved a decisive victory, becoming the first Asian nation to defeat a European power in modern history. This remarkable achievement earned Japan international recognition, as well as it also shaped global perceptions of Asian strength. Furthermore, the Treaty of Portsmouth was signed in 1905, formalizing Japan's gains and granting it control over Korea and parts of Manchuria, including the valuable Liaodong Peninsula. This territorial expansion further solidified Japan's position as a main regional power. Beyond the geopolitical landscape, the war's impact was also felt within Russia. The humiliating defeat sparked widespread domestic unrest, contributing to the 1905 Russian Revolution. The loss undermined the authority of the Tsar and exposed deep social as well as political discontent. In the end, the Russo-Japanese War was a transformative conflict that reshaped power dynamics in East Asia and also had lasting effects on both nations' trajectories.